Oh, here we go, everybody. Welcome. So, let's do the usual, making sure my video is good, our audio is good. My video is fine on my side, stream well. Got a good connection. My audio is bouncing. You guys should hear me just fine. Everyone can give me just a little thumbs up, make sure we're all good to go here. Along into, we're looking at going back. Thanks, IR Sculpts. So we're going back to the Aliens Dropship, but obviously now with the new version of 2021.7, we have all this new stuff that we can use to go along with it, right? So this is going to be a lot of fun to use the new features well with this, okay? So as we go along here, as always, we'll be doing our best to get through all the things and try and use as many features as I can. And then I will, like I said, I'll sprinkle whatever I can into the new version. So there's obviously going to be plenty of times that we can do this. And then as always, whatever questions come up for you guys, right? I'll try to answer what I can. My goal would be to do this dropship. Now my goal would be out of this stream, we have it all nice, clean, ready to go. And then the next stream that we would do on this, now just adding some. But you never know, maybe I'll get far enough getting into well. But going by and see what we come. So as always, thank you for coming. I'm really stalling for. Hello, John. You made it. How are the kids? How's everything? Great to see you. Always coming back and see all the people coming back. All right. So Matthew's saying that on his side, my sound is cutting out from time to time. I don't know. Is that happening? So on YouTube, the audio seems a bit poppy. I don't know why this would be. It never fails. I'll move the mic even closer and see how that works for you all. Yeah, I got strong internet connection. What about those on all the other platforms, Facebook and Twitch? You guys having any audio? So let me know. Oh, I know what this probably is. I've put on a filter. So my voice, when I stop talking, the mic actually turns off. So that's probably maybe what it is as well. I was trying to reduce the noise background for you guys so you didn't hear my fan, because I got to have a fan on or sweating my little office space. Okay, so that might be what it is. All right, so here we go. Let's get going on this. So let's go back. I'm going to go back to this front part again. And the beauty of this, right? We're going to come out of perspective and let's use right out the gate. Let's use some new stuff, right? So we got, I know you all have been loving the knife brush, right? You guys have been big fans of this, okay? So then now I can use this actually as a cleaning up tool. So I have like a Dynamesh piece in here. So I'm going to use this because I know I can get polygroups. I'm going to use this to actually clean up a little bit of what I have here, what I've already made. And then obviously the beauty of this is it works symmetrically. So I'm going to use that as a way for me just to clean up the whole thing. Just make it nice like this. Nice polygons. And you want to look for stuff like this. Right? See, I didn't quite flip that or knife that quite enough. So I'm going to come in just a little bit. So what I want to make sure is that each one of these planes just have their own polygroup. Right? That's it. That's all I want to make sure really quick. Okay? And I'm going to turn the floor off because we don't need to see the floor. And I'm going to remesh this. So what I'm going to use the keep groups option, and I'm actually going to turn off the smooth grouping because I don't need it to be smooth before it actually remeshes, okay? The trim brush has still got its definitely benefits, John. There are times where I would use the trim brush over the knife brush. I can throw up a little very quick example, but let me just make this really quick again. So I'm going to say polygon count. Let's drop a lot lower. I'm going to make sure symmetry on is on, and then I'm going to remesh. Right, so now I've got a nice, clean version of this model, right? And then now if I turn on my dynamic with the D key, now we got this, right? Boom. So this is a great example of I got something kind of rough, and then now I've remade it to be a little bit bigger, right? I mean, cleaner. And then now I'm just going to go back, and because I did all that knifing, cutting, I don't like the sizing that I have, so I'm going to use my handy dandy deformer. And again, I'm going to go symmetrical, right, with this. So I'm going to pull this cone out, and I'm actually going to make it so there's only like as few as possible. Right now, I'm just going to work on, yeah, we don't need any this way. So now I'm only got 4 points of interest in essence, right? So this gives me the ability, I want to make this a little bit wider. That, and then I'm going to go a little bit taller. It needs to be a lot taller looking at this a little bit more. Right about in that world. I'm a little too much. Okay, and then in the back, right? This needs to be moved just through so it follows all the way through. Something like that. Okay? And this is now going to open up some more things for me. And if I want to now soften this up, there's a couple things that we can do, right? I can start deleting some edge loop, right? So I'm making a bigger gap in the edge loops. So see, this becomes more rounded. So this is what we had before. And just by eliminating some edge loops, that profile. So a lot of times I will just start eliminating edge loops from the remeshed version. So I just see I can really change that profile a lot. Okay, I can definitely do things like that, right? So this is my goal. I just want to have a little something, change that. So I'm going to say, okay, I like that. And then looking again at, let's look at just the figure. There needs to be a little bit of flaring out, I would say. So if you look right here, a little bit of flare happening. In essence, that bottom, just a tad bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do that based upon that image. So I'm going to, once again, use my handy dandy deformer. This time, that flare. So do I want it to do kind of a flaring like that? Or do I want to do a little something different? So I'm going to add another point of interest. And I'm actually going to do a little bit there. And then in the middle points, I'm going to flare it out just a little bit more like that. There. Right? And then there I go. There's where I'm at right now. Okay? And then now, if I want to start moving other edges, right? I got these edges right here. Symmetry mode. I'm gonna move a couple more edges. Okay, so looking at this, that middle one, I'm gonna come in this. This is where I prefer something like, so this top edge right here, I'm gonna use a slide, and I'm gonna do a complete edge loop. Okay, so that it can slide the whole edge loop a bit. Got a little bit of tapering at the top. Not a ton. And then I'm not worried about the front because it's going to get covered by this anyway, right? Okay, so there we go. Now this is the process I'm going to start doing now with all these pieces, and I'm going to start using different features to do this. So John was asking a question. What would be the reason why I might want to use a trim brush over the knifing brushes? There's going to be scenarios where that's going to be beneficial for you all. So like if I take as an example, I'm going to quickly take a cube here. And let's make it flatter like that. Maybe not that. And let's just throw some Dynamesh on it. Right? So now we got Dynamesh. Okay, so obviously our knife brushes now will give us exactly what we're looking for. What you see is what you get, right? As I like to say this brush now. Right? And if I did that same thing with the trim, right? A trim curve, right? And do that same thing. For this scenario, from here it looks good, but when you turn it, you're getting that dip in there, right? Because this is just closing off the hole. It's just seeing this hole and closing it off. So the knife brush isn't working this. Now, there's going to be times maybe, as an example, if we start using, again, the knife brush, and let's use B radius this time, and hold the Alt key so we can just start making some shapes in here that are not now even connected at all. That, and then that's enough. Okay, so I'm going to turn off B radius. So the one thing that's built into the knife brush as well is when I do this, you'll notice that these top don't get touched, right? The knife brush is only going to change the islands that it's crossing over, right? So in this scenario, this island didn't get touched, right? Because I didn't cross over it, right? As you can see, curve. If I'm not crossing over it, it doesn't get touched. Almost starting to look like. Okay, so if I do something like that, right, only these two islands get touched. Whereas the trim doesn't have that rule in it. So if I just want to get rid of this and just put a straight through, then I can delete everything. Right? So this is where maybe in a scenario where the trim might work for you. And again, people, this is picking the right tool for the right thing that you're trying to do well. And then just the more you understand the features and the tools, then you're going to make a better decision of where to actually pick. And looking at this, I want to make another adjustment. A lot taller. Yes. Okay. So let's just keep going here. Let's just keep remaking these pieces. All right. So let me now head off to this one. So I'm going to grab this image. I want to see what this is looking like from the side really quick. So let's size that up. Okay. So we've got a nice little profile here. There's a defining line here. And then there's a shift change here. So I want to be aware of that. Right. So looking from there and then now taking this image. Look at this image from the front view. Okay, so now looking at this, we've got a roundness going up here, right? And then we've got something like this happening. Okay, so you can look at this in multiple ways, right? You can try and do this all in one piece for sure. It's definitely doable. But looking at these two images and really looking at the profiles from the sides and the front, I'm actually going to use two pieces of topology for this. Okay, because it's just going to be easier for me to get what I need, okay, out of this. Okay, so let's bring this down back over here. So I have my inspiration, what I'm making. Okay, so now this piece is going to get replaced. So I need to take this, right, and then this is again. I've got conceptual pieces that I've been working on. I'm going to go ahead and split this off. Okay, so now there's the ship, still its own pieces. And now this is the next piece I want to fix. Okay, so I want to turn this into something else. Right, so and in this case, just for the sake of us talking to each other and looking at what we're making here, I'm going to delete the other side. Easy to put the other side, right? John, I like the quotes coming. All the quotes coming through. I like this. Like it. Taking a swig of water. All right, now let's go ahead and say for me, again, looking at that profile, I would say the best thing for this is going to be a cylinder. So I'm going to grab a cylinder from our gizmo. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. I need to size that down. Okay, it's going to need to live right about here, right? And then I'm going to say, let's go ahead. And this is a decision now we got to make as artists, okay? I can look at this cylinder in two different ways here, right? So you can see this and this really what's important to me. These right here, right? So I can say, well, what if I just use my extender to say, okay, go this way, the center point, right? So now what I've done is I've made sections, right? Here, I'll solo it out. This is what I've done, okay? And I'm going to, for the time being, get rid of this insert mesh, this inserted edge. So I can kind of now just go Q mesh, polygon, and I'm going to go through and get rid of actually all this. Really, the only part I care about now is that. Like, there is more than one way to do what I just did. Reason why I did it this way is I'm going to keep low, low, low polygon, right? And then now I can position this where I want. It needs to be elongated a lot more. That world. And I'm looking at now this, how long it needs a lot bigger. Bigger, so let's position this now. I want this to be, okay, so we're going to need enough height. Right about there. Okay, and this is too wide. So it needs right about, so that's why they have a plane shift here, right? Because they're using this plane. Right about there. Okay. And then now, this is another example of, all right, I'm going to turn on my dynamic so I can see what is this doing when it looks smooth. Let's go ahead now and let's smooth it up to 4. Let's throw some. Okay, so I'm going to by polygroups, right? So now I got to create this. What I actually want is I want this edge loop there. Just let's do it. Rocking and right. And now I don't think I've elongated that enough, right? That profile isn't quite where I need it. So let's go ahead and edit that profile. Once again, quick deformer. This time I'm not going to have symmetry on. And let's keep the 3 points of interest. Stretch it out. Or file more like that. Above. Get this gap here. I want to maintain that similar. Go a little bit more. Right about in there. Right? Something a little bit like that. Right? And then there you have it. Right? And we've got something that looks now for that. Now, I'm going to soften this up to, I want a little bit of softer edge like that. Maybe not that soft. Yeah, that looks good. I just want this edge right through here. Soften up just a little bit, right? So because I've got, again, 4, right, dynamic subdivision, I only want that creasing that I put on this to last, for 3. That's it. That's all I want it to last. Going on, Elvis. Welcome to the stream. Okay. So now I need to make the other half of this. And like I said, I want to use 2 shapes. Okay. So for me, and I really seeing that from this view of our reference, right? Seeing what that's doing, it's very, in my opinion, it's very more of a spherical shape, right? I don't really have any good back images. I'll just see if I can find some. So it looks like some of these images, see, this is actually sticking out further than this portion of Dropship, right? It's got a little bit more of something sticking out in there, right? So let's go ahead and let me resize these. And if you guys wanted to, we could just reorganize these, right? I can reorganize them so they're all on one side if I wanted to, and then just grab them when I need. Okay, so I'll tend to do this. Well, work even if I don't have any selected. I can actually, right? If there's none selected, you can size them all down as a group, and I have them lit wherever you want. So I will do this sometimes just if you want to get more room. I'm also usually not working on something that is 1920 by 1080 resolution. We're just doing that for this. All right, so let's get something else in here. I'm going to, let's say, I don't even know what to call it. Let's name this by 5. Well, not Wentz. Those and if there's any Philadelphia people, Minneapolis, ball players. Then fence. Right? And now I can either take this and just duplicate this over, right? Like this. Okay? Which can be very beneficial for me. But for the sake of what I'm doing, I want to edit this. I'm just going to duplicate it so I have more than one right now. Here. And I'm going to move this over. Okay? And then it made sense to have more for me. More of a spherical shape to start matching this profile that I want to land. Again, I'm looking at this. So we'll make one of these bigger. So I can start to see the profile a little bit. So this is just another way of me to go about that. Okay. And so I can say, all right, I need now to start having this change a little bit. So once again, this definitely has a clear cut through the middle, back, and the bottom. So why don't I do that? Why don't I get rid of these portions right here? So I'm going to want to stay low polygon if I can. So this is relatively low. And in fact, let's even make this a little bit lower. Go. I want to have a center. I want to make sure I have a center edge here. I want a center edge there. My center there. I've got 4 by 4 by 6 by 4. Go 4 by 4 by 4. Okay. Go I'm just changing the topology of this. And then now I want to make sure the point here. Then we got edges here. Okay. So I want to stay low polygon. So I'm just going to go ahead again. Once again, use my extender just to separate and create points of interest to look at this now. All I really care about portion, right? Now, of course, wanted to, could just divide this up technically, right? So let's take that approach. Let's take a different approach. Right? So I'm gonna just come over here and we're gonna say divide it up. Okay, and now I have a division. Now I'm just gonna say I need, once again, we can use our handy new knife brush. I need, right? And then I want down this side. Right? So now we've got this ready to go. Now we're just gonna put this up right about there. Right? And I'm gonna position that down so it does that. Now we're getting that profile. Now I need this profile, right? Because it's got to come out in here. I'm actually going to move my gizmo back here. So what I'm doing is move my gizmo here. So when I do this, you can see the back portion doesn't move, right? At all. So I'm just repositioning, kind of now start capturing. But I need this to start. Okay. And there, looks good there. And now I don't have quite the profile that I need. This would be another reason why I would maybe make another separate subtool, because I can turn on transparency. Then I can really see what I'm trying to match, right? Because I can see the defining line of the other subtool. This would be the benefit of switching, making this own subtool, okay? Let's get this profile, and guessed it, go right back to my deform. I love this thing. This is like a go-to for me. So I'm gonna go, let's go, probably that's enough. And now I'm gonna say, again, holding the Alt key, asking out, like that needs to come up there. Here, this profile needs to go down. I'll need to, like, I'm gonna need up, right. A lot more. That world. And I kind of like, I'm gonna put a little gapping ridge in mine. there is that. Our transparency off. Now we're getting, okay. And now at any point in time, you want to keep editing things. This is kind of a separate subtool, right? So we can even, from this side, start editing things as well, right? So now I'm going to say, I'm going to accept this profile. Okay, I go with adding one. Let's start editing the file a little bit. Having a little bit more of a sharper transition. I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to use my movement by eye here. Right, and again, there's going to be more than one way to do this, right? But there, I have that piece where I want it. And then this, for me, I would probably, once again, this has all been now, you can see, chopped up, sliced up. This is really ugly topology right? So I'm going to actually trim this so I can get the better topology from our trim brushes. This, right? And this might be an example. Someone was asking, instead of the knife brush, actually, I think it would be better to use trim or knife would be different times. Like, which one do I use, right? So this would be a good one for the knife because instead of using trim, I get better topology here. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that is I'm going to remesh this. And I know the way the remesher works, if I'm trying to give it something that's really ugly like what I had here on the bottom, he might have more difficulty just trying to figure that out. I might not get what I want. So I'm just doing that. Let's go ahead. We don't need a lot. So, in fact, let's down to 500. Okay, and let's just now keep the groups again. I don't need any. Mesh that, and then, right, and then I know when I go to smooth this, it's going to round those edges, right? So it's going to start creating that gap that I actually want to have in these pieces. I want a little bit of gap so it actually looks like it's well. Because if you look, they've got a little scribe line section, right? So I'm just going to use the two pieces to automatically create that for me. And let's go ahead. I'm going to PG crease it. And then we've got dynamic 4 and creasing level of 3. Okay, so if I want to see what it looks like, there's what, right? And there we go. Right, so now I've got that shape happening. Okay, and this is a point now where if I wanted to, right, we've got this shape, got this shape. So they're both doing the same thing, and my settings are the same. So this is where maybe I would just even come here to merge it down, and then now they're all one, right? So they're all the same piece. But I don't want the color. Right, and then now I would mirror and weld looking at my floor, right? It's just a mirror and weld over of the X. Come in here, do a mirror and weld across the other side. Right, so even if I don't have the other side, it's not that big of a deal for me, right? Okay, so let's continue moving on and let's look at more pieces. Let's go ahead and let's make this piece, because now that I have this, and let's solidify this piece. Okay, let's take this, right? And I'm going to go ahead and let's split this off, right? I'm going to look at this now in a way. Right, so this is going to be all this mid body. All right, and this time let's take a different approach. So looking at this, let's take a look at some of my references. Okay, so this kind of has a little bit of a roundness to it based upon this reference. Obviously, it's going to follow this pathway. And there's going to be a point of interest right there. Okay, looks like on that side. So let me get a couple other little. I'll look at a quarter. right? So then, okay, I can see this. And it looks like it tapers just a little bit, right? A little bit taper. Okay. So there's main things here I want to now think about. Okay, this is going to have, because this is where the missiles open up. If you guys know the ship, right? Up, right? That's what it does. I love all the aliens quotes coming through, guys. This is awesome. One of my all-time favorites, for sure. All right. Okay, so I'm looking at this profile is one thing I want to register for myself. I want to register this, and it looks like it tapers just, I would say just a little bit, right? From the front to the back. There's a slight taper. Not major. Okay, so I know the top view I'm going to need a little more roundness. Okay, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. I'm going to tell you guys in a second here. And let's look from the bottom. Who we got in the bottom here. Okay, and we're looking at this piece. Right? And so then it just stays pretty much constant, angle, straight through, right? Pretty much, it's pretty constant. Right, so let's go ahead and let's make that now. Right, let's got a little bit of idea. Now, I'm also doing this because this is what it goes back to what I keep saying to you guys, the right tool for the right job, right? Of course, the knife brush is all our favorite thing now. Just quickly bang this out and get these, this profiles working for us. Looking at the subtle changes that I need to make, okay? I am going to go, I'd rather go low polygon. So I'd rather go Z modeler approach for this because I know I'm going to want defining edges in exact spots. And I know I'm going to want a little bit of a sloping taper. So my mind immediately goes, low polygon is the best way to do that because I have limited number of edges to move. It's going to make everything easier for me to move. Okay, so this is my thought process. So for this one, let's go ahead and turn everything off but this particular subtool. Okay, and then I'm going to go with duplicating this. All right, and then this, I'm going to replace the duplicated one with a 6-sided cube. Right, so we'll turn transparency on so you guys can see what I got here. I'm going to do this. Right, so it's very low. And now all I got to do is quickly, okay, needs the profile of this is about there. And the height of this there. Okay. And I know it's going to have a slight tapering like this. So I'm actually going to raise this to be a little bit higher. Okay. Because I know this is the highest point. As you can see through here, that's the highest interesting of the ship. Again, if we're looking at this image, the area I am focused on right now is this part right in there. Okay. There's got to be nice little roundness. Okay, so I'm going to make that the high point because I know this is going to come down like this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to say from there, that looks okay. That profile is done. Okay, it needs to be certain width, right? So I'm going to look at this one first and say, okay, I don't think I'm wide enough. Look at, see, I got a couple other images. Here's the one with it open. Here's a great example of it open, right? What I'm building right now is this part. Okay, so that's just giving me an idea of how that's going to work. Here's a nicer side view. So yeah, I would say I don't have enough tapering, right? Lengthen. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. This is now where design changes. If you guys notice, as I've been going through here, I'm not getting stuck on right about there, right? I'm not getting stuck on, okay, I'm going to work on this part, right? And if you look, this part's got a bunch of details. Like, look on this image, right? There's all these little nice details in here. I'm not worried about any of that, all right? That to me is like a stage 3. I'm on stage 2 where let me just get the piece made, make sure those proportions were right, okay? And so this is where I'm at. I don't worry about all the crazy details like this, right? See, there's all these nice details in here. Not worried about any of that at this point in time. Okay, I'm just worried about, let's make sure that when I'm done with this, I've got the dropship looking like the dropship. Okay, All right, so this is going to say that's pretty good, that's pretty good. All right, so we definitely need some edge loop. So we need an edge loop in the middle. That's definitely. So I'm going to just make it easy on myself. Mirror and weld to give me an edge loop in the middle. Perfect. Okay. And then for me, I'm going to start now doing some dynamic. I'm going to go to dynamic 4. And I'm going to go crease level now of 2. And let's throw some at 45 degrees. And then now what I have is all the main edges are creased, right? So I'm starting to have that look again. So we need to match this profile of this item at one point, right? And I'm going to make this image bigger because this, I think, is a great image, right? And you can see there's a sloping, right? So that means the profile that I've put, so now I'm going to turn this guy back on, right? I need the profile to keep going this direction, right? I need that profile to keep going. What that tells me is these points need to come forward a little bit. The point lives right there. That orange, that's actually where that point lives. Okay. And here we'll do, now let's go crease. Okay, so then now if you look from the front, right, I'm starting to get this subtle raise that happens to happen back here. Okay. Throw our transparency back on. Next thing I'm going to do is I need to start matching the profile here. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to change this. Okay, and in fact, let's turn symmetry on now. I'm going to move this to match that right. Those edges match a little, right? Okay. And that's going to now also come down for me, right? So I need the top half, both sides, start down a little bit above. So now this piece is my way. So I'm just going to, I don't need, I want to focus on this. Like that. Okay. And don't worry, we're going to start adding, when we start adding more edge loops, all going to change. All right, so now I have, okay, starting to have that. I've got a nice slope here. I'm going to go ahead now in modeler, and I'm actually going to edge loop this way. Because looking at that, right, straight, I'm going to have a little bit around this line. That'll help me add up a little bit. That'll help me more that world. Okay. And then I want a little bit more play with this that's happening. Okay. So I'm going to add an edge loop here as well. Right. So I can start playing. I'm going to now bring this up a little from that world. Right. So now I've got a more of an arcing here, more of an arcing. Right. That's giving that. So I'm going to throw on these so I can get a gauge how I'm looking. I can see this is not wide enough. Right, let's throw the cockpit on a little bit. Okay, so I'm not getting this wide enough, right? Look, there should be a little bit more gap in there. Right, so then that means this main piece that I'm working on right now doesn't have enough gap, right? And I also had made this piece. Okay, so I need all this now to work together. Okay, so let me go back to this, center this. right? And then what I'm going to do is mask out the middle portion. And then I want to only have that mask vertex point. It's going to be, okay, wider, that, out, that world, that world. Right? And just like, this is why I'm not putting all the crazy details in yet. I want to make sure I'm landing this right? I'm getting the profiles that I need. Okay, so this I'm not too worried about because I'm going to be cutting that out later on down the line, right? So what I mean by that is right now this is intersecting, right? I'm not too worried because I'm going to have to do this down the pipeline. We'll slide it a little. Slide the whole. That plays with that profile there. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say I want also from the side better part here. Okay, and I slide this. Let's in. And this is why I've made the decision to go low polygon. You can see I can really start to match the things I need to be matched just based upon looking at low vertex point. So it's easy for me to make some quick adjustments to this piece. Not too complicated. That world. I'm going to bring this back up. Back. Back. That. And this is a point where you can, in essence, sometimes I'll use slide, right? And then I can slide this. I can see that profile, how it's changed, right? Okay. I'd say now it looks like we've got pretty good length and width. Let's put the rest of this together. Okay. So this is going to be now coming to this part, right? So I need that match. So I'm just going to take polygons that are already, mesh those, pull it out, that profile. Now I need to partial. Now this needs to make a drastic change, right? So I've got a defining edge here, right? That's matching with this profile. Now I need this defining edge as well. I'm going to use this right here as that edge. Okay, so I'm that down and need that. Then off, or because up, off a little bit more. At some point here, I'm going to add an edge loop. Look. Okay, now looking at this, this needs to be straight. Right? There's also a little bit of a tape. Okay, so I'm going to mask out. Again, I got symmetry on. This, center it. I'll just quick straight. That's straight. Okay, and I would even say, let's make, well, that tapering. Right, so it gets wide at the front and then tapers in the back. Okay, so that is going to be having to adjust this. I got to have a little bit of a taper here. You can start using slides. Taper this a little bit. Got a little bit of a tape now. Right, and again, if you want to go this approach, really low, 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 slide this along to have a slight tape. Now, another thing that you could do for this, honestly, another really way to this instead of these little points at a time, point at a time kind of approach, you could also mask off these edges, flip them, and switch to flip curve, and just use your curve brush. I want the right, and then there's that taper. Now I have something like that. I'm going to bring that taper down even more. I'm going to go ahead and mask these off again. Again, I'm working in symmetry. Now I'm going to slide the edge loop. That now looking there of might be a little aggressive on this. Right? And now that we have this, okay, we need to now define next portion. Right, I need this. We're not there. Right here. Right. I've already got that. Okay, and then I would say then looking from the bottom, that looks well. We're making this. So it just pretty much comes down and has a little bit of taper up, right? Like that. Okay. Where then I'm gonna the height of this. Organize out of my way. Back to this. Need another edge loop. Right? And then this is where, how do I want that edge loop to sit? Okay. Do I want it to sit like this and see taking on profile? Taking on this, or do I want this where it stays nice and straight? Right, that would be my preferred. Nice and straight would be. Okay, so that is the shift key. I'm closer to this edge loop when I click on making an edge loop and hold. Tries to match that edge loop. Okay, if I'm up here, right, it's going to try and match this edge. Right, so something like that right there. Okay. Right, so this is what's causing that. Oh, well, you guys are saying, hold on. Here, I'll turn off the noise gate and see if that helps. Here, I'll turn off the noise gate. Okay. How's that for you? Is that better? Let me know if that's better. I turned off the noise gate so the audio doesn't turn off. I can't win with the audio. All right, John, check you later. All right, so I'm going to do something. I need another edge loop there. Okay. And let me look at the side again in here. Right, so that's going to be equidistant. It doesn't need to have this big of a gap. Like, that's pretty big. So I'm just going to move. I'm going to move this up. Probably it lives more in that part of the world, more like this. Right? And then I want that tapering in here to kind of still work. So I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to rotate so to match a little bit more of that taper. in there. And then this definitely needs to be creased. Something like that, right? Because my next stage is going to be making this profile now. Right? So let's see how that's starting to look. Okay, and I'm going to use the clip to just flatten that back part now. So there we got this. And then now I need this, right? Needs to come in to start making this profile. So I'm looking at the bottom. Right, so I'm looking to see, let me grab this image here. Right, and do that. And come in like this. Right, I'm going to look at this image. So from the bottom, I'm looking like this. Okay, so this needs to have a profile that comes all the way over into here, right? And it gets pretty, looking at this, it gets pretty flat. Like there's not really a lot of gap in here, right? So let's bring this down more. And this is going to get changed probably once I do that front piece as well. All right, and then these edges need to come way more in. Something like this. And then I'm even going to move these this direction too. So a lot more. Let's just keep moving these in. I'd say right about there's probably enough. And again, I'm probably going to end up adjusting these after I look at the landing gear and put this in. And in fact, I'm going to uncrease this stuff. I don't need this, any of this creased. All right, so I'm going to quickly uncrease. The only thing I need is creased as that. Okay, and then for sake of mine, I'm just going to do a little clip and make sure they're all living. And then there you go. There's that portion now. Right, and again, I'm not 100% sure if I got this correct. I'll know that once I start now putting this piece in, and then, of course, when we put the drop shipment part of it in. Okay? So is the audio better now for you guys? And I turned off the noise gate, so my sound now doesn't just turn off. All right. Who can move? Rudar? Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Your question is, who can move after complete this? Maya or what? I'm drinking water. Okay, and now looking at, you know, some of this profiling in here, I'm going to add another edge loop. I'm going to put another edge loop right in here. Okay, and the only reason why I'm adding an edge loop right there right now is you see this? This is not really perfectly flat on the original. So I'm going to need to put, right, a little bit of roundness in this. Right, so that it can have a little bit more of that roundness. And again, I need to go grab some more images so I can really see what's happening in that transitional part in there. Right, I would say my problem, I can see what my problem is right now. This piece right here is definitely got too much of a profile this direction. Okay, so I'm gonna select this out. And let's change that profile a little bit. So let's go ahead and use the deformer again. And I'm going to say I need a profile there and probably one there. And let's go ahead and take this quadrant and then just start changing that profile to be more like, I think it needs to be more like that. Yes, that's much better. Right? And then now this, let's go back and re-edit this. This needs to live a little bit more now there. And then this I don't think needs as much of a profile change. And then now this can come in a little bit more tight. Like that. Just make some small tweaks. And again, this is the decision for me why I went low polygon as well. right? It's easy for me to make some quick adjustments. Low, 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 low polygon in here, right? I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. I'm not going to put so much roundness in that right there. Maybe more, maybe in that realm. There we go. Okay. Okay, so there's that. So now we're getting all these pieces to come together. Let's move on now. Let's move on to a different piece. Okay. And let's move on to this piece right in here, right? Because then that's a relationship happening in here, right? That's this piece here, right? Through there. And in fact, looking at this actually, looking at it like this is that, right? And it looks like we've even got a little bit of a tapering of this edge to come more like that. So it does more like that, right? Something more like that. And I would say this will start getting a little bit wider. Okay, that looks good now. Okay, so I looked at this, and this is actually the piece that I was just making. I just noticed that on myself, right? And then again, the only thing left to do now is I need a slight taper this way. So because I got a lot of edge loops, I'm just going to center this and once again use my deformer. And I don't need any points here, here, here. And it's working symmetrically. So then this is the only 2 points, and I want just a slight taper. Something like that. And then that way that profile isn't really messing too much, and I got a little bit of a slight taper that I want. And then there we go. Okay, let's now make this big piece in here. Okay, which is this part right in here. Okay, so let's pull up. I'm gonna go ahead and save because I haven't saved even since the last stream. I didn't save. And ba-doom, ba-doom, 3. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead. And Rodolfo, welcome, welcome, welcome. Am I doing the tank too? Man, challenges being thrown at me right now. And then yes, this is the alien dropship. Yeah. So let's now move on to my next piece that I want to clean up. Looking at this is down here. So this is going to be my next piece. This right here is my next piece. Okay. And when I edit this piece right here, I didn't have symmetry on. So let me just quickly fix that with a little mirror and welding. There we go. Come back to this. And once again, I'm going to take this piece. Let's split it. Okay. Let's turn this on. And now we got to start making this. So again, once again, I'm going to look really quick at what it is that I'm trying to make here. Okay. What exactly is this? So I'm now looking at this piece right here. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, once again, it's kind of higher at the top, back, than the front, right? So probably the bottom also does that. So let's see if we can get an image. Yeah, it looks like the bottom also. So it's definitely got a little bit of tapering there. And obviously we got a profile like this. And then we're doing this. Okay, and let me look from this view now. And then we've got a taper like that happening. We'll look at the side view here now of this. This is just something I like to do. I like to really wrap my head around the piece that I'm trying to make. And again, I'm not worried about making this, making these hinges. I'm not worried about any of that at this point in time. I'm only worried about making sure I get this piece right. And you look, this is a great example of this piece actually has kind of, if you look, has kind of a roundness like this in the front, actually, right? And if you're looking, it starts somewhere about here in the vents, and then see it tapers out, and it almost reaches out. It looks like it almost goes further than the front of the vent. This is very important, okay? So this is going to be something that we want to remember when I'm putting. So first things first for me, I'm going to go ahead and then just get this kind of shape that I need, right? And remember, this has got a taper here as well coming out. So it's going to need a little bit of some roundness in here. Okay, so I'm going to go, let's get this piece going to where I need it. Once again, let's reorganize these so they're out of my way. And so this piece definitely needs to be flatter here for now. Okay, so we're going to use, really doesn't matter, but we'll use the knife. It needs to be more like this, right? So I'm going to use this as my gauge of the furthest point, which I think I'm in a pretty good spot. Right, so where this scribe line is, and then there's a secondary scribe line. So you can see there's a little bit of a gap there, right? If I made a scribe line on this right there, that'd actually be in a good spot. So I say this is a great spot for the front, and then there's going to be roundness in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to, let's reorganize these back again. And once again, this makes the most sense. And let's see, I don't even know why I did that originally. Let's see. No idea why it even has that. It's not gonna, it's gonna get covered anyways, right? This is gonna get covered anyways. So that was me probably just being silly once again. All right, once again, I've got this shape pretty much already is giving me what I need here, right? So I'm gonna go with, here, let me look at this again. Okay, it kind of more is straight across. Let me look at this one. Yeah, it's got a slight slow raising. And I can definitely see it here. Starts to taper a little bit, that profile. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up here for me. Just keep my eye on that. And I'm going to leave this one in here for me as well. So I got those images. Right, if I want to, we can do this, move those ones off, and then now I only have this. And again, I would normally have more room than this, but because I'm streaming, got to keep that resolution. Okay. Yeah, this is very similar, Jones, to, but the beauty about ours as well is it's symmetrical based upon where your gizmo sits. And as far as painting it, there's not really much to paint, right? Because it's just solid colors. We'll see. I can do a lot of this in ZBrush. Okay, and there might be something I'm going to, in fact, I don't know. I might do something where again, my goal is maybe 3D printing this and putting it on my Christmas tree. My wife's going to be thrilled. No, she's not. Okay. All right, let's go ahead now and let's just look at this piece again. I'm going to duplicate it once again. I'm going to center this. And let's grab a cube. This is making total sense for this one. This one's going to be even easier than the last. So the highest point is there. Okay, it comes out this far, right? And it only needs to be that wide. Okay, and then we are going to need some more edge loops in here. So I'm going to do a mirror and weld. And this time, I'm going to insert an edge loop right about there. And actually get rid of the middle one for now. And then these two sides, they need to taper in. Something more like that. Okay? And then we need to do our handy dandy creasing. Right? So I'm going to do a crease of 45-degree crease. And then in all honesty, I would make it a habit of changing your polygroups up where there's really defining plane shifts. Just so you have different polygroups there, because you never know down the pipeline when you might want to use those polygrouping, right? So this is just a habit of me doing this so that all the plane shifting, where those plane shifts are, I have that, right? And then now throw it on, some dynamic. I don't need, let's turn transparency. I don't need this piece anymore. Let's delete that. Okay, and it's pretty harsh, way too harsh. Right, so let's go with a 4, and I think a 2 is probably going to be pretty good in here for now. All right, so we've got now the profile. Let's start turning on some other things here so I can start really looking at this. let's turn on the, there's my cockpit, right? So I'm just going to call this cockpit. So we got that. Let's turn those things on. We got that. We got that. We don't need this cockpit anymore, so let's delete that. We need the front intakes on. And then I need this. This is, I don't even know what to call this. Back, I'm just going to call this back cockpit for the time being, right? All these pieces now need to be working together, right? So already I've got, let's see, I've got an issue with this. Okay, looking at that. And I would say from the side, definitely. So I need, in this particular piece right here, definitely needs to come down a little bit more, right? So I need this part to come down a lot more, right? I need to have a little bit more width in there, I would say, because you got to be able to fit some, we got to be able to fit some missiles in here, right? And then it's not long enough at all, right? So you look at that relationship there, This needs to come way more out. So again, symmetry, I would say more right about in there, right? Just give that more width through there. Okay. So I would say that's looking pretty good there. Okay. I would say I'm going to go even a little bit more. Don't worry, this is going to get a little bit hard. If you want to, maybe to help your eye, this is where maybe for the time being I would throw this on so you can really see that, right? Or throw on a couple flat subdivisions, right? Also, so you can see what that's going to look like. See a little something more like this. Like this is where I'm going to end up getting this to. There's a little bit more softer look like that. Okay. But I know that, so I'm comfortable enough working with this looking a little bit not harsh yet. I'm just going to go there. Okay, so there. All right. And let's look from another view here. Let's see, I want this image. I'm just looking at this right here. Right? It's definitely not wide enough. But that, I think, is actually now my problem is, let's go ahead. This is why it's so important when you're doing this to be looking at this maybe closer to it ahead, right? So my real problem is actually not that. My problem is now this is too big now through here, right? So I would say this is looking good, but this portion down here, it's way too much. Let's see, let's get more in that world. There, that's better, right? And then now that means this needs to come up a little bit more. Something more like that world. Okay, that looks good. Okay, we got the taper here, taper here, taper here. Okay, good there, good there. And now, okay, this image, I think I got that. And now let me grab another image here. Let's grab this image. Let's look at, right? So then it tapers out front too, right? So this has got a taper. And this is why I'm not really quick, for me, adding a lot of edge loops really fast. Okay, because I want to first get some of the major portion of this. And I would say right about there. So now that I have that, okay, now we're talking. Now we've got this. Then it definitely comes down. Now we need this part, right? This transitional part. Okay, and this is why now I'm going to turn off this, and why I'm keeping it kind of this low to begin with, right? And I would say this, right? Looking at this, I would say let's make this come down actually even a little bit more there. And then I would say this also starts to taper a little bit right there. So something like that. Okay. Still living in a good spot there. Good there, good there. Okay. So now I need some edge looping in here to create. So this is where I'm going to insert an edge loop there and in there. And you can see now it's starting to get a lot sharper in spots. Okay. Because now I want to use the edge loops that I just made, right? And I'm going to use these polygons right in here, right? And I'm just going to pull out that front part to start getting that tapering. And again, I'm going to, let's see, it looks like it goes all the way out to here. Right? I'd say about that far, close to that far. Okay, now I got that. And don't worry, this is all going to get cleaned up because we got to cut all that shape out. Right? So that's all going to change. Don't worry. Don't worry. Be happy. So let me look again from here. So I would even say it looks like, let me grab another image here. In fact, looking like I might want to change the way, it looks like that part, so they got a little bit right here, right? So I'm going to do like we did the other one actually. I'm going to make these two pieces again, and then I'll weld them later. Okay, so instead of doing what I just did here, oops. Okay, I'm going to undo this. And I'm going to use these pieces again, right? So I'm going to reuse this in a way, and I'm going to make this have its own little geometry. So I'm going to take this Q-mesh polygroup all. I'm going to rip this off. So it's got its own piece of geometry, and then give this some thickness. All right, and then I'm going to crease that and that for now. Right, so now that we have this, okay, I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to separate this. Okay, and then now this, let me capture a little bit better of the profile of this. So I'm going to insert an edge loop there, and then I'm going to insert an edge loop there and there, right? And so you see it's taking more on now the silhouette, and all it was just adding a couple edge loops to this back piece in there, right? And what I mean by that is, right, taking on this softness that you're getting through here and through here, right? Again, I'm going to end up chopping this all up, okay? For sure. Okay, so that's not really going to be a big problem for me. I'm just more worried about getting some overall softness to start happening through here. And again, don't worry about transitional things at this stage, right? So I'm sure some of you might be looking at like this part, how this is transitioning in nicely and then into here. Don't worry about that. I'm going to take care of that later on. Don't you worry. All right, so what I need to solve is this roundness part. So I'm going to grab this, okay? And looking at this, right, this is kind of an interesting thing that they actually did up here. So quite challenging, actually. So let me go from that one and let's take this one. And let's make, from this point, let's make it bigger. Oops, I don't need spotlight. And then let's move this here. So I'm caring about these two images right now. Let's put this one right about there. And we'll put that one right about there. So they're bigger. And so I can see how this profile is going to work for me. I'm just taking a quick look at what we're going to do in here. Okay, so this is now going to live. All right, let's have this live right about here. Okay, and I need an insert here. All right, and then I'm going to do another insert right here, let's say. And then now let's start uncreasing some things. So I'm going to uncrease this and this. And then the bottom, see, they really changed up the profile on the bottom. They've got, actually, they've got this coming way up. Way, way, way up like this. They got something more like that happening, right? This angle. I'm looking right in there. Okay. And now I have that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to uncrease this edge, this edge, this edge as well. So I get something more like that. And there is that roundness to be a nice start for that transitional piece to go from one to another. It looks like I'm going to need to crease that. So what I'm going to do, instead of a crease, let's add another edge loop so I can control what's going to happen in there. Right? Because this is all going to change. Right? This is all going to change right in here. We're going to start cutting that up, cutting that up. I'm really just trying to get a profile to match what's in this. Okay, so this needs to come way back more. Way, way, way back. Something like that. And then this is going forward way too much. Should be more in that world. And again, this width, it's going to get solved when I put this shape in, right? It's all relationships here. Okay? I'm going to get all these relationships to work. Don't you worry. Okay, and I'm going to say there. I'm going to keep that looking like that for now. Okay, now let's move on to the next piece, which is this one, like that big, huge front piece, which is really important. What's going on? 3x. I don't even know if I'm even going to say it. Tingy. 3x tingy. Is that even right? Okie dokie. Now let's move on to this. So this one's interesting. This one's got some interesting stuff happening in here, right? And the interesting part is this right here, right? So we're going to need a defining edge there. And it's got a fan going this way and kind of like fan kind of going that way, right? It's kind of point here and then point here, right? So, and then it's got roundness in here. Okay, and then roundness through here. So I'm thinking about my approach for this. I think I'm going to go, let me look at some more images. Okay, and the side profile looks like that. Okay, so we've got some shift in plane here. Okay, so this comes like this, then comes like that. They've got it where it's a very defining change. So I'm going to go with that. It's going to go straight, and then a change, and then a change, and then another change. Okay, and then now let me look from another angle here, i.e. the bottom. Okay, and then they have this going on in the bottom. Right, so definitely you can see there's an angle going this direction. Let's make this one bigger too. Right, so there's an angle here. So looking from here, from this point, it kind of tapers out this way. We got a defining edge, round, and then we need to make this corner thing happen. Right, that's a unique thing that's happening there, right? So we need to think, what is going to be the best way for me to do this? You know, I'm going to experiment something. I want to try something that just popped. Let's try it. It popped in my head. Let's see if this will work, how well this will work for us. Okay, so what if we... Okay, so we've got this image here, let me grab, make this image a little bit bigger. I only need to see one side of this. And then make this image bigger. I only need to see that side. Oops. And then let's take this image and let's flip it. And let's make it this and move it over to here. Okay. Go bigger here. Okay. All right. So we need to start making something that can make this happen, right? This kind of flow. And it's got a lot of shifting in planes going on here for sure. Okay, so one thing that we could try, let's try it. I don't know how well it's going to work, but let's duplicate this piece, right? And then I'm going to, let's just do one side. Oops. Let's make a, and actually, let's not grab this sphere. Let's grab the sphere in here. Let's see this one. Center it, flip it. Okay, the reason why I'm grabbing this one is we've already got roundness here, right? And because this is all going to a triangle, I have edge looping that I can use to my benefit here, right? So this is where, let's see, this is where I'm going with this. We are going to need, let's look at this. Okay, so it's going to go straight back from this profile. So I'm going to use my extender, this time not symmetrical, and only go this direction. Okay. Then I'm going to go, let's see, then this sits at a certain spot. So I'm going to say, brush C, modeler, let's even do this. Let's get rid of this stuff here. We don't need this right now. And I don't need this, whoops. Don't need these. Those, and let's get rid of the purple portions. Delete hidden. And then now, looking at this, let's position this where this would be now. So this part follows this, goes out to a certain part. I'd say it goes about, let's say, that far. Squish it. Squishy, squishy. And it's going to live right in about in there. And then this needs to come way to the back here to start. Something like this. Okay, and then let's extender and extend this direction for this portion. So something like that. Okay, and then that should be still within the range, okay, of the cockpit. That's good. That's a good spot for that. And now what I can do is now extend another direction. Let's go ahead now and extend. Let's accept this because I'm going to change the extender. And again, I'm going to turn symmetry off so I can come this direction. Okay, something like this as an example. Okay, so now this is giving me that roundness, and now I need, in this corner here, they're doing this, so I'm going to look from the same angle as them. Okay, so I'm going to do a mirror and weld here. So we'll mirror and weld that. All right, and let me grab this image, and I'm going to flip it. Whoops. This direction. Because I like to, if I'm looking at the image like this, I want to now match this. So this is way too wide, right? It's way too wide right now. So with symmetry on, this needs to come way more in. Right? Needs to come just in a lot more. And that's literally living right about there, I would say. Because don't forget, there's going to be a taper going this direction. Okay, and then I'd say it comes out pretty far. Right, so maybe more in there. Maybe more like that. Comes out maybe that far. Right, now let's use this to my benefit. Okay, so we've got a little triangular shape here. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's go there to there. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's delete those edge loops there. Then I'm going to crease this there, and then let's leave just one edge loop for now in here. I'm going to slide this. Okay, and then now we start to get this shape starting to happen. And in fact, it looks like I'm even going to delete delete that. Okay, so this piece is giving me that, which is this, then to this, then to this. Right, so I need to make some adjustments here. So I'm going to slide this edge loop. It's a little bit more like that, which means then this needs to come a lot further forward, more like this. All right, and I would say even, let's play with this. Let's snap to that point right there. And then even rotate this out. How big do you guys, I'd say maybe about that big. Right, and then I would say there are way too many edge loops along these profiles here. So let's get rid of, I like to start with every other. So I'm going to get rid of this one, then this one, then that one. And then so every other, this one, this one, this one. And then now let's see what that profile is starting to look like. Still not there. It needs to be a bigger profile, more like, starting to give me more like something like that. In fact, I would even go as far as there. Right? And this geometry is giving me this change. This change here is what I'm working on for that geometry. And in fact, let's go ahead and mask out complete edge loop again. And I'm going to rotate this a little bit more. So there's more in that part of it. And then I would say, let me look from here. This, okay. And then now, my next thing would be, let me just look at only this. Okay, and this, right? And these need to move more this direction. It's a lot tighter up on the top than the bottom. And then the same thing for these two. They need to move along this direction a little bit more. Giving a little bit more tightness into there. Right, and this is where maybe, right, maybe I think I need to also then, let's adjust this. Yeah, yeah, keep that straight. And there's that. And then now let's add another edge loop. In fact, I'm going to do another edge loop a different way. Okay, why not? Let's do an edge loop a different way, but in fact, I can just also, now I'm looking at this, I can just move these to live more like that. Right, and again, right now I'm still low profiling, getting this piece to match the way I want it to right now. Right, and then this, I would say this part lives more out like in here, which means then this is going to come more this direction, and then I'm going to have these come a little bit more this direction. So you're doing this. Okay, and then I'm going to take this top half right here that doesn't have a top yet. Okay, so I'll need it on both sides, so top and bottom. So I'm going to switch to symmetry here. I'm doing this, and then I'm just going to, whoops. Oh, I need to turn on my local symmetry so that when I mask off, it's just this middle portion being tapered in. And I'm doing that because I need this to go all the way to the back, see, like that. Right, and then I would say this is not quite right. Turn off my symmetry, deformer. I'm actually going to put an extra one there so that when I move this, I get more something like that. Something more in that world is where I want to start going with this. Okay, and I don't like what's happening with these edges. Let me turn my symmetry back on. Hold on. Oh, but I have symmetry Y on. Go back to my X. This is tapering too much. This portion's tapering too much. Just more like that. Right, and let's not forget, I'm going to be able to now start adding more edge loops, right? So if I want to make this be a little bit stronger edge, right? You can start adding edge loops in all this to see, make it be, if you want that to stand out a little bit more, you can do all of that. Which I want it to stay kind of where I had it. I'm actually going to slide this edge loop a little bit, something more like that. And then I'm going to slide this one, needs to come actually all the way back. And then let me slide this one more. There you go, right? Starting to get that to start working for me. See, in the cockpit now needs to be resized. The cockpit's not the right size. Hold on, I'm looking at a question. You're asking a question about how can I make multiple instances of the same mask area at different places? For example, I mask an area and I want to repeat that stroke of mask. Well, are you just trying to do like just a mask, like you're just trying to do a Sculpting mask across, or are you trying to do something else a little different, right? That would be my first question. I think, what's the front of this? I think I need to go a little bit wider with this. So looking at this green edge here, I need, actually, let's do masking here. I want this to come out a little bit more. Just give it a little bit more. Yeah, it needs more room. Yeah, that's better. Something like that. That's a lot better. Okay. And taper it like this, and then it comes across. Right, just another example. I don't know if I like this. I might go with a different approach for this. Let me first, I'm gonna put something else in here. Just looking, I just came up with another idea for me to do this. Okay, so can you expand on your question for me? Okay. Okay, the cockpit is definitely not right. It's not right at all. Right now that I'm looking at this, right? It's not sitting in a good space. It's too tall, first of all. So let me change that. So let's, already got a deformer on this. It needs to be more probably in there, that world. And it needs to come way further out, way more. Right? So I'm going to stretch it. Way further out. Something more in that world. And I'm actually now going to get rid of a lot of these edge loops. There's something more like that happening. Right? And then now I'll add an edge loop just to control edge that front part. That's a little bit better. It looks like it's got a little bit more of a steeper angle as well, like this right here. I don't think I'm landing that angle very well. It needs to be a little bit more steep. So let's push these back. A little bit more of a steeper angle like that. And we don't need this many edge loops to define that side. And I definitely don't need all of these. Not necessary. Right, so you see this is even after the fact. I'm still making some minor tweaks and adjustments to where maybe I want this to actually look like. And again, it's all because of once I start getting the other shapes in there, that's where things will change up for me. Okay, this, okay, and then now I got that. Let's turn this off. Okay, and then now let's play with that profile. So I'm gonna insert an edge there. So it goes pretty straight to about way out in front. All right, something more in that a little bit. And then now let's slide this. And I'm going to even, just to give this, I'm going to crease this for now. Just so I get the profile that I want. Something like that. And in fact, looking at this, I'm going to change this up. Let's mask out. And I'm going to straighten this so it's straight. So when I smooth, I get that. Right? And then now this edge loop needs to come way more forward. Let's say right about in there. Right? And then this, let's go ahead and slide this edge loop now. And increasing level, let's just put it at 1. We'll go 2, I guess. No, I like 1. Right there. It's getting closer to the profile that I want. I think what I need to do is go here, and I'm going to add another edge loop in there. And then this, let's have this bulge out a little bit. I'm still not completely happy. Like, this is just like rendering. Like, it's like an all day thing here that we can keep messing with and manipulating and playing with. I'm just trying to look at where I want this to stay. Okay, and let me uncrease this now. And then now I'm just going to add an edge loop in the back, edge loop in the front, so get back that sharpness a little bit. And I'm going to slide this and watch it change. There we go. Okay, there you go. That's much better. Right, and I would say even still now, after all that, I say this front end still needs to come out a lot more. Like a lot more. There. That's better. Okay, so that's that. I got that now. Got that relationship, got that relationship. We got that. All right, let me go ahead and save this where we're at. Let me save it up. Okay, when you're using mask pen, sometimes to mask down an area, basically a shape I create with a mask, I want to replicate it. So if I am able to repeat that mask shape several times, I'll be able to inverse the mask and use clip curve. It will give me a pattern, a uniform shape, since they were masking for. Yeah, but you don't have to use that approach. You don't have to use a Boolean approach if you don't want to. So if I have like a cube, let's make that a mesh. Right? Number one, if you want a pattern by a mask too, so don't forget to use alphas, right? Because you can even just switch, instead of masking pen, switch to like mask rectangle, and then grab any alpha you want, right? And then so now it's this, right, is going to be part of it. So if I even did this, see, I'm getting that pattern. So one thing is you could do this, and then if you had an alpha, you can come to your modifiers, and I can just tell it to repeat. Like, how many times do I want this repeat? So I'm going to say, and then now, see, I'm getting something like that. Very thin masks, right? So if we now did something like the bevel flat, and I go from here to here, right? Let's go from here to here. Oh wait, let me turn off. I didn't turn off my samples. See, you're gonna get this pattern, right? So this is one way to go about it. You can just use the rectangular or square, right? And then just put your alpha down here. So maybe I would want to go with a smaller alpha. So then I would get a bigger gap between these. And then this is going to work with now any sculpting brush. It doesn't matter what the sculpting brush is, right? So this is how I would do something like that, right? And then switch to the arc brush, and then just go and let me arc certain parts, and let me say, well, let me just only arc the middle section, right? If I want to. And then I can say from that point to that point, right? You're in the middle section now. Okay? Right? The other thing that you could do, right, is you can use Spotlight itself as well. Right? So I could here, let's insert something else. Let's take let's see, an alpha in here. There's a lot of other alphas in here. Right? Let's just say something like this. So now it's in here, right? Okay. So you could also use this as a sculptural element as well. And then this could be anything. Okay. So first of all, you're going to have the ability to repeat tile here. Right? And then now if I'm sculpting, here I'll just grab a different brush. Right? Wherever I sculpt, right, I want this alpha to be used. Okay, so if we use here, we'll use clay buildup. Well, let me turn off this as well. Okay, so you can use this as another way to go about it, right? Because you can just tile, and then you can tile this any way you want it to. You can also tile both directions, and then you can hold the shift key. So if I went back to the beginning, you can hold the shift key and tile uniformly. And then don't forget, now this has also got rotation, so I can put this at a 45-degree angle if I wanted to, right? And be able to do things like this as well. That's another way. Another way would be old school, very old school, right? Take an alpha and make it a stencil. And this is, whoops, hold on, sorry. This is old school, right? And then you have a stencil, which the stencil can be scaled, right? You can rotate and move it. The stencil also has the ability over here to repeat as well. So you can repeat this way, and then when you go to, I keep hitting, when you go to sculpt on this, there you go, see? And then you can inverse the stencil as well. You can even put wrap mode on so it wraps around, right? And then here's your invert. And so now when I sculpt, it's giving me the opposite now, right? That's another way. Another way would be, let me turn stencil off. Like I can go all day with this. You can just use poly paint, because if you paint with black, if I fill this, you can use any color you want now, right? It doesn't even have to be black. Okay, so I can say RGB, color, fill object, right? And I can even use a bright red, right? And what I can do is this, make a stroke, and then I can come here and hit shift 1, shift 1, shift 1, shift 1. See, I can repeat, right? So instead of looking at it as a mask, right, you can also repeat your masks. Okay, so if you make a masking pen and you do say something like this, that's the stroke. So I can go somewhere else and repeat that same mask anywhere I want. Like, that's another way to go about it. But you can also do the same thing with paint. You guys got to remember, you can paint like this, right? And then I can do the same thing. Shift 1, same paint, shift 1, same paint. Right? But then you can come over here and you go into poly paint, right? You can adjust colors, but you can also go into masking and mask by paint. Right? So you can do a mask by color, mask by poly paint. Here's my cube, and I just click and drag that, and I can play with the tolerance. And then I can inverse the mask and hit OK, and then there you go. And then here's my masks. This is what I'm saying. There's endless ways to go about to your question, right? So you can see all of those would work for you. Okay. Thanks, Rodolfo. Sound good? It's cool. Does that help answer your question? I just showed you multiple ways to go about that. And I'm showing you multiple ways because it depends on what you're trying to do. One way might be better than another, depending on what you're making. Just like right now, what I'm making, I'm probably going to redo that piece I just made because my mind just went another direction with that of maybe how I can make that better. I wish I was a wizard. I wish I was a wizard. Okay, let's keep trucking along here. Let's start getting more of these shapes done. I definitely don't want... Right, I just want to start having an overall view of what this is going to look like, right? So let me make the rest of the cockpit. Okay, let's delete this. We don't need this one. Bing! Okay, so let's make this portion, which is pretty much... It's pretty much a cylinder and spherical shape in one, right? Because this is cylindrical through here, right? Through here. Then it's just flat, but it's got a little bit of roundness in there, a little bit of taper happening, just a little bit. Not a ton, but just enough. Just enough. Okay, so I think I'm going to go the route of a cylinder. And this is also, you know, what way we're starting making things and looking at this in a different way, right? And before I make that, let's actually make the bottom half of the cockpit, which is, sorry, excuse me, this part right here. See, I didn't make this part because it's very different, right? So we need a better view of the bottom. See something like that? Let me make this part first, and then this bottom half, then that'll help me establish the top portion of this, right? Because there are just very different shapes happening in here. So let me work on that real quick. So we can go several routes with that. That's going to come down to here, right? And it's going to, it even looks like looks like it's got a tapering happening. Let's see if I can see a side view of this thing now. Let me reorganize. I might need to go, I think I'm going to need to go get a better side view of this dropship. Can't quite see, but I would say from this view, there is definitely a little ramp up right there, right? And I think that's what's also giving more of this width in here. Definitely to me, looks like that for sure. Okay, so let's do that. Let's now make this bottom half portion for me. All right, I'm going to say the first things first. Let's say cockpit. Let's duplicate it. I'm going to rename this bottom cockpit. Okay, and actually, I want to see if something. Let me know if you guys. I'm going to turn on my air conditioner. Let me know if you hear it. Back to quoting movies. I love it. I'm just reading the question. Okay. So I need to make something that's going to be rounded around the whole thing, and then rounded. So I need rounding in here and then rounding this way, right? So I need to come up with what's the best shape for me to do something like that. I'm going to go this route. I'm going to go, let's center this. Okay, reset it. I'm going to go cylinder. I'm going to go cylinder 3D. So I have something like this. Let's rotate this so it sits like that. Okay, and I don't need right now that edge loop. Okay, for the sake of, for me, let's go ahead and polygroup by normal, so I get 3 polygroups. Then we do our handy dandy crease by the old PG'er, just so I start having a little bit more shape like that. This needs to be a lot smaller. Okay, so let's move to the front. So it can't be wider than that, I would say. No wider than that, right there. And it doesn't need to be this So something more in that world. Okay, and then I'm going to extender this once again. Starting to get that shape that I want. I would say it kind of looks like it tapers, right? I'd say the whole front part of the cockpit has a little bit of taper to it. Like for me, looking like this. Just a slight taper like that. Right, which means then this needs to have a taper too. So let's accept the deformer we've been playing with. Let's make another deformer. And I'm going to say that taper doesn't happen through the whole thing. So it only happens really from this point on. So let's taper that. Give that a nice slight taper in there. Yes, definitely has a taper, for sure. Okay, so now I'm starting to get this shape where I want. Okay, and I'm going to, for the time being, let's uncrease all. And then now I'm going to say, let's insert an edge loop here. Let's do an edge loop there. Let's edge loop there, and then delete. And then now, there, I'm getting that shape. And let's add another edge loop there so I can play. So this is giving me that right there. Right? And this is going to end up getting covered anyways. But I'll add another edge loop in there. So we get that look starting to happen. And like I said, it seems to be, to me, there's now a taper this way. Right? So I think this is too wide still. Right? So let's first play with the wide with our deformer. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go like this. Okay, it's definitely, I don't think that wide. Something more like that. And then I think it does something like that. You guys help me out. Am I crazy? Does it look like that? Maybe now that I see it from the side, I need to get a better image of the side for sure. Yeah, it definitely looks like it tapers. It's definitely looking like a taper there. At least for me. It's tough to tell because that image is in straight profile view, right? And then I would say, okay, and then this part here, right? That's not happening in the front here, right? It kind of stops because now there's a spherical shape. So I'm just going to take my handy dandy. You could just take this if you wanted to and just cut it like that. Okay, so this is really low polygon, right? So you're going to get some little crazy triangles here. Okay, so this would be an example of if I wanted to use the knife brush, I personally would probably divide it up a little bit and do some poly grouping. Okay, but you could also just, in this case, just use the clip and flatten it, right? And then now I'm going to come through here and crease like this. I'm going to just crease this part right in here, right? Just this flat plane. I'm going to crease that so then we start doing this. And then I'm going to throw another edge loop in here, right? And then now I got that happening. Right? Because this seems to soften down a little bit. Right? So it's nice rounded there. But then that kind of stops in the front. It kind of now softens this way. Right? So I'm going to push these points in a little bit. In fact, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something else. I'm just going to even get rid of that front part. And let me look at just this so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and do a delete hidden. Then let me turn on display double so you guys can see everything. And then now let me really quickly look at this and say, all right, I want to bridge from there to there, there to there. Gives me that. Then I need an edge loop right here. Right, so then I can bridge from there to there. Oops. I want to, not an edge loop, I want to bridge from there to there, there to there. Kind of just rebuild this front part, because the front is different than the back end for sure. And then now I'm going to assign this to be a new polygroup. Just stick with that workflow of always assigning new polygroups. And then now I get something like more like this. And now let's insert an extra edge loop to make that front be a little bit more like that. And then now maybe let's do an inset. Polygroup all, do a little bit of an inset. Okay, let's see if I can get rid of the triangles that are being made. So I'm going to do an inset. I'm going to take my snapping and turn it all the way up. There we go. We got rid of those triangles. And then now I'm going to Q mesh, polygroup all, and then I'm going to pull it out. So then this creates a roundness right here. Right? And then I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually even going to drop that so it's more like that. There. Just give me a little bit more of that roundness in the front, and then I can play with that now. In fact, I think we could probably uncrease this. Let's try uncreasing that. Yes, I like it uncreased, and now I'm going to slide and just make that have even a little bit more roundness to it. Something more like that. Yes, yes, yes! I'm making things! I don't know what, but I'm making things! Okay, and this now needs to live back a little bit more. And I would redo these because I am pinching that. See, now I'd say it's too wide. It's never ending. Definitely need to go and work on my proportions a little bit more, because I think it needs to live in a different, it's too wide now. And then this needs to come out way further. Right, so but here's where you got to be careful, right? I'm using a rounded shape here. This is what I'm saying. This is the difficult part about hard surface. This is rounded. So by me doing this, I'm squishing that rounded portion, right? So you got to be aware of this. Okay? So this is something to think about, right? As you're working, right? And see if I do this, see how it's stretching it? So this is why maybe you would add a couple more points of interest. So then this is only stretching out so far, right? And then I would accept this as far as the length maybe, okay? And then I need to be able to change the width. And then this is where you got to think about this. Even if I add another one like this, and I do this, see, it's still squishing it. So I say it lives more like that. And then I would say now these. And then here is the benefit, right? So you see how this is working? See how this is kind of doing this? Watch this. This is why I also like the deformers. I'm going to do this first. I'm going to switch to the gizmo. Okay, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to line the gizmo along the actual path. Right? And then so when I do the deformer is going along that path. So if I decide to do something like this, right, to just change this so it's back to being more rounded. Okay, first of all, we're going to add a couple more, like right there. That's good. Okay, so I'm doing this so I can make this back to being a little bit more rounded. You can see I'm keeping this profile here, right? Because if you look, see, it's all being moved along that path. This is the benefit of what we can do now with it, right? So something more in that world. So again, the cockpit still needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger, it looks like. And then now this part, right? This has a spherical shape that needs to go in here. So some kind of spherical, change the size of that, get it to the size it needs to be. Just a bit smaller than that. Something like, start doing something like that. Right, and let's not forget, I'm going to have to do the front part of this still. Okay? All this stuff's important to us, right? And what we're doing, I would say now this part still needs to be. This is all me now. So let's do this. Let's accept gizmo. And let's look at only this portion. Oops. Let's look at only this. I'm going to center it, redo this, and deformer. And it definitely, I went too small, I think. Come back out to here. And then I'm going to actually taper this again. So I'm going to accept this one, and then I'm going to make a new one, and then get rid of this, and then just taper this. I'm going to taper this a little bit more like that. There. Okay. So now I'm just got to continue this process as we go through here and making the rest of the ship, right? So it's just about cleaning up these pieces and trying different techniques. Oh, James, thanks for joining the stream with me and Shane. It was fun. We're gonna do a follow-up for sure. Just you guys are having an enterprise conversation, okay? Center an object to the world. Center in ZBrush. Yeah, you can center an object to the world really easily. Except graded. Comics Legend. Hold on. Is there a chance in the next upgrade to add a fade opacity slider per subtools? What do you mean? What do you want fading the subtools? I don't get your question. Are you talking about when you're in transparency? Subtools don't fade. To your question, can I somehow center an object to the world? Yeah, that's super easy. There's more than one way to do that as well, right? So if you take, let's just take this, right? The first one is, so let's just get this off the center of the world, right? I can center this gizmo and then just hit home. There, center of the world, right? So if we take something else, here we'll take the head. Here, let's take a tool. I didn't save what I was working on. Let's take the dog. Okay, so you can move this off, right? And then this can be anywhere now, right? And even do this and this. So what I can do is center it first, right? Reset it and then click home. That's what the home is. This home is recentered to the world axis. So that's one way to do it. And the key point here, everybody, it's not about the model. It's about the gizmo. So wherever the gizmo lives, so if I kept the gizmo here, if I put the gizmo here by like his eye, right, and I hit home, see? His eye is now the center. That eye, this portion of that eye is sitting at the center of the world now, right? So that's one way to do it, okay? Another way to do this is not using the gizmo, going into geometry, and you have sliders right here, down here in geometry, that are called position. right? And this is the position of the model in the world. So you can zero this out if you want to, right? And now it's center of the world. All right? So now you have that ability as well. You can center the sliders. Okay, so comics reads, you want certain subtools to be transparent and other ones not be transparent, right? That's what you're looking. You want one subtool to have a transparent of 80, and you want one subtool to have a transparent of 30, and you want one subtool to have a transparent of 50, right? That's what you're looking for. Comics relief, I'm assuming. Okay, so now this is another way, right? But let's not forget there's also stager now, right? So you can make a home stage now and move this model wherever you want, even rotate it and everything, right? Change even the size of it, make that a target stage, and now you can switch back and forth. All right, Comics Legend. I can't promise you that'll be able to happen though. But I know what you want now. I understand. So you can see you can use this. This enables you now, I can be back in symmetry, right? Switch to a sculpting brush and sculpt away, right? In symmetry mode now. And then the final one obviously is not. It's sitting off somewhere else in the world. Okay? So you could also use this now. This is new to 2021.7, right? And then there's an old school one that's kind of, but it won't do the same thing as stager. Okay? You can have something moved somewhere else in the world, right? So if I turn on the floor grid, see it's just sitting somewhere else in the world. You can go and transform, and you can also set your pivot point and see it move the dog back to the center of the world, but it doesn't re-rotate it or anything like that. That's the advantage of stager over this. And then you can work at the center of the world, and then you can clear your pivot and send it back, and see now it's back in the old position. In essence, stager is now just a better version of that. Okay? Now stager can have literally two different complete movements and everything. Okay, so there's your multiple ways to move something back to the center of the world. Cool? Answer your question for you. I don't remember who answered that. Who asked that. I am not using the space mouse. No. Not using the space mouse. Okay. All right. Who was that even asked the question? I've lost you. Okay. Therin. Is that cool for you? Does that answer your question for you? Everything's good? Okay, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to save where I'm at with this. Got to save. Got to save where I'm at with this. All right, there we go. How would you use that stager function when you have something already made out of symmetry and now you want to do symmetry? It's not gonna work. If you have something already out of symmetry, then you're gonna have to use some tricks to put it back in symmetry mode. You would have to have already made a home staging point for that. If you had the original model, there are something you could use morph targets, re-import it, and then it's at the home base, and then you can save now that your stager points, and then delete. You can use morph targets. There's stuff you could do with the gizmo as well, right? But there's nothing one-click solution in ZBrush that's going to say, hey, put this thing back to the center, rotate. If you had it rotated, there's nothing. We do have the sliders that you can, in geometry, like I just showed, you have position and size, but there's no rotations. But I could probably, I haven't tried it actually, my mind just put it in my head, use a morph target. If I got something off somewhere in the world and I still have the original where it was perfectly symmetrical, I could store a morph tagger or something that's all, I haven't even tried this.
I don't even know if this is going to work. I'm going to be honest with you. But logically, okay, so this might work. Okay. So let's say I have this. Let's export. So this is only, of course, if you had the model, right, at its original point, right? Which this is going to be rare, obviously. So I'm going to save that. Okay, so let's say now, all right, I've got this, let's say now off here, off here, off here, off like this, and do this, right? And then now you want to stager. In fact, let's just try with the stage. That's my target. And then now let me re-import the model. I actually didn't try this. This would be a fun. And then home. Whoops, darn it. Home. There you go. That worked. Don't even need the morph targets. Right? So if you had, think about it, if you had a version of your model like the very first time you made it, that's how you could do this. Just export an older version of your model where it was symmetrical. And then you can get it back. That would be a way to go about it as well. It's just export the version where it was symmetrical, and then target is my unsymmetrical, and then I re-import and have a home stage. Just your polygon count, you want them to be the same. So the target and the home stage need to have the same exact polygon count. You can't have home stage be 5 polygons and target stage be 50,000 polygons. It's not going to work. They got to have the same exact polygon count, especially when the homes and targets are made as well. Okay, well, that worked. There you go. All right, so unfortunately, I gotta go, everybody. I got some other things to get on. I appreciate you coming through and saying hello and watching me. So I'm going to continue this project next week. I'm gonna try and get this coming week here more of this model done. And then that way I can show you guys finalizing and how I start adding a bunch of details into the model, right? Like getting all this stuff and like this, and then this repeating pattern, those repeating patterns, things like that is important. Again, I look at hard surface in being 4 steps. I'm in the middle of stage 2, right? Stage 1 is blocking out, figuring it out. Stage 2 is now what I'm doing. I'm trying to clean things out, refine my proportions. And then once I have everything clean, looking good, that's when I worry about, all right, move on to stage 3. What pieces need to be combined, so forth and so on. Okay? And you guys can already go to our calendar on ZBrushLive.com. We've got a calendar. You can go set a reminder for next Friday if you go to my stream. So I might as well show it to you so you guys know what the heck I'm talking about. So we're not just sitting here and listening to Paul chitter-chatter it up. Boom. Okay, let me get to ZBrush Live, the calendar. Okay, so here you go. Here's our calendar. So this is just ZBrush. You can just put ZBrush Live in Google. It'll work. Okay, and then here's the calendar. So you guys can even go to calendar view and go to the 10th. And then you can get reminders right here. Right, so if you click on this, and I go to 1, and then you can remind me. Okay? So that's a way you guys can get reminded. You'll get an email 24 hours before and an hour before. Cool? All right, thanks for coming up and following me. Rodolfo, good to see you again. What time is it there right now? It's like 10 o'clock at night, right? 9 o'clock at night, nighttime, Friday. Everyone else, too, that's from all parts of the world, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come spend with me and making this dropship from aliens. So my goal this coming week will be, I'm going to try and get most of this ship at a very cool point, 9:20. Yeah, so you're 8 hours in front of me. Rodolfo doesn't sleep. No, you're right, Kieran. All right, everyone have a wonderful evening, afternoon, day, wherever you are in the world. This has been Paul Gaboury with another stream here at Pixologic, and I am out.